Tenerife, February 2020. We set off to discover this diverse volcanic island in the Atlantic Ocean. The biggest island of the 8 Canary Islands, just off the west coast of Morocco, is known for its warm and pleasant climate all year round, which gives it its nickname, Island of Eternal Spring. The island rose from the Atlantic Ocean by volcanic eruption around 12 million years ago. But the earliest human settlement on the island dates back to around 200 BCE, around the same time the structure of Stonehenge was completed. Tenerife is now inhabited by around 900,000 Tenerifeños and visited by approximately 5 million tourists each year, making it one of Spain's most popular tourist destinations. It is known for its vast offer of resorts and all-inclusive holidays, beach party destinations with guaranteed sunshine. But this is not why we are here. We want to see the secret Tenerife, the spots away from the mainstream tourists. Hike on unknown paths, discover hidden treasures, and celebrate the carnival in Santa Cruz like a local. First, we set off to Anaga National Park on the northeastern part of the island. It was easy enough getting there with a rental car, and the views of the island just before you enter the national park are stunning. Our first stop was a short hike from a tiny mountain village called Taborno. Taborno has only around 85 inhabitants and is on the ridge of a mountain range. It is famous for the Roque of Taborno, which is also nicknamed the Matterhorn of Tenerife. Can you see the resemblance? The views on the hike are absolutely breathtaking. Although we were not blessed with sunshine, you could still see the Macizo de Anaga. Its relative altitude and its peculiar situation in the passage of the trade winds make it the most humid area of Tenerife. Ridged mountains divided by deep valleys and covered in greenery and forest, bordering the vast ocean. The sight can make you feel truly insignificant compared to the eternity of mountains. To quote one of my favorite authors, Jane Austen, "What are men to rocks and mountains?" Diving deeper into the Anaga Mountains, the diversity of its fauna is evident. In 2015, the Anaga Massif was declared a biosphere reserve. As the day was coming to an end, we had one last stop. Compared to the Anaga Mountains, the roads were getting easier to navigate, wider and less curvy. What seems like driving through a foggy forest is actually driving higher and higher up through the clouds, driving up to an altitude of 2,000 meters above sea level. It was quite a change to the rest of the day. Just before sunset, we were able to catch the last rays of sunshine at the spectacular viewpoint in the midst of a pine forest. We couldn't believe how lucky we were, but for a few people stopping for the obligatory Instagram picture, we were undisturbed. We were able to enjoy the stunning sunset, mostly all by ourselves, taking in the breathtaking view of Mount Teide. It felt like we were in a magical dream. The next day, we set out to hike the area of Xenia. Unfortunately, the sat-nav took us down a road that was not suitable. It got tighter and tighter and was not paved. So we decided to turn around and found this little hike along the way. We were hiking just amidst the clouds, and the microclimates of the island were apparent every time you went around the corner. The south part of the island is protected from the winds by the mountain range and therefore is not as humid as the north. We managed to find a hike that was just in this grey area, where it felt like the weather changed with every step. But our main highlight of the day was yet to come. Driving along the main connection between Los Americanos and Los Gigantes, this hidden gem is located just off the main road in Santiago del Teide. As you can see, I was pretty excited. We got there just in time for the sun to set and stopped at the viewpoint overlooking the Macizo de Teno on the northwestern part of the island. The volcanic massif is furrowed by deep ravines that end abruptly in the sea in an area just behind Los Gigantes, a series of high cliffs that plummet over the sea. You can see the narrow winding roads that now lead to a little mountain village called Masca. Until 1960, this little mountain village was only accessible through a sand track from Santiago del Teide. Masca is built on an ancient volcanic crater with houses spread over several mountain slopes. It is now nicknamed Spanish Machu Picchu. Prior to the Spanish conquest in 1496, the little mountain village used to be a Guanche settlement, and before the boom in tourism, the small village used to be famous for its potatoes, garlic, and goat's cheese. We took it a little bit slower the next day, discovering the little town we were staying in, Icod de los Vinos. We took a casual stroll along the little streets and stumbled across a square that was centered around the church of San Marcos. There, we found this lovely species of banyan fig tree with lovely examples of aerial prop roots that will later mature into thick, woody trunks. But then, when we went around the corner, we were stunned by this tree. A little research revealed that this tree was said to be up to 1,000 years old. El Drago is the oldest and largest living known specimen of the dragon tree. It is around 20 meters tall and has over 300 main branches. It was declared a national monument in 1917. Today, it was finally time to conquer the volcano. It was a very special day for me. When I was a little girl, I had a humongous fear of volcanoes. To this day, my mum is at a loss as to where it came from. But she had to assure me constantly that there was no volcano near the little German town I grew up in. I frequently had nightmares of a volcano erupting in our street and woke covered in sweat and fear. It is fair to say, my 5-year-old self would be very impressed with my bravery today. Before hiking up to the summit, we stopped at a rock formation called Roques Garcia. This rock formation used to be the former summit of the island, before the legendary Teide volcano formed, and is a splendid place for an easy accessible hike, even if you don't make it up to the summit. The rock formations are fascinating to look at, and there is a lot to discover. Like this flow of lava frozen in time. Or this rock that looks like a great white shark breaching the water surface. The park is said to be the most visited national park in Spain and even Europe. But it has always had a historical and spiritual value. For the Aboriginal Guanche, Teide was a place of worship and the entrance to hell. Located in the Teide National Park, with a total height of 3,718 meters above sea level, the volcano can be seen from almost everywhere on the island. We had gotten a permit to hike the summit in advance, and once checked, we were ready to go. It was not an easy hike. Almost 4,000 meters above sea level, the air is very thin. Getting nearer to the summit, you can start smelling the sulfur and feel the warmth coming from the stone beneath your feet. It feels very invigorating to know you're walking on an active volcano that last erupted in 1909. There are different scientific opinions out there on when and how violently the volcano might erupt in the future. But it is safe to say that the magnitude of the risk posed by Teide to the public remains a source of debate. Now, the park also has scientific importance. The resemblance to Mars has not only been recognized by Hollywood, but is also evident in the environmental and geological conditions. It is an ideal place to test instruments that will travel to Mars. In 2010, a research team tested the Raman instrument that was then used in the ExoMars expedition to Mars. And yes, Hollywood also recognized this fantastic location. It is featured in films like 1 Million Years BC, Clash of the Titans, and most recently, Rambo. After conquering the volcano, we were starving. And while driving around, found this lovely place, Hotel Spa Villalba. It was very classy, and the food was mouth-watering. On the way back, we decided that we would wait until the sunset to get a good look at the night sky. Teide National Park is ideally located away from the light pollution of urban areas and is one of the best places in the world to stargaze. We picked a spot where we were joined by a group of stargazers. With their help and professional telescope, we were able to see the Seven Sisters, the Sword of Orion, and for the first time in my life, I got a glimpse outside of our own galaxy, catching the light from our neighbour Andromeda. Today was the day. Having the whale watching cancelled was annoying, but looking out the window it didn't seem any different from any other day. The sea was rough, but nothing to suggest that it would have been unsafe to drive to Santa Cruz for the day carnival. I got dressed up. Kitty was now ready to play. But then this. On the road, it became apparent that our little spot must have been sheltered. Driving on the road felt a little bit like one of those silly apocalyptic movies. There was debris all over the road. Rocks the size of fists lying in the middle of the motorway, signs flying about, and fallen palm trees blocking the way. Nevertheless, I was stubborn and persistent and did not want to turn around. It took quite some convincing for me to stop. Having sought shelter behind a wall somewhere near Puerto de la Cruz, we knew we could not sit this out here. We decided to turn around and try to sit this out in our accommodation. Halfway on the way back, we were stopped by the police. The only road leading back to Icot de los Vinos was blocked by wildfire and could not be passed. We were lost. There was no going back and no going further. We turned around again to drive into Puerto de la Cruz, taking shelter for a few hours until this blows over and we can safely drive home. In Puerto, we walked around aimlessly, trying to figure out what to do. We were shocked. What was supposed to be streets filled with people celebrating the pleasures of life before the period of Lent was almost like a ghost town. We were witnessing first-hand devastation, not only the physical strength of the storm, but also in the faces of the local people. Eventually, we found shelter in a bar. It had a TV in the background, news channel on. Heads turned to it in disbelief. The air thick with hot Saharan sand. Our skin felt like it was covered in dust. Calima. A sandstorm so vast it obscured the Canary Island from satellite view. A sandstorm, a blast of hot, sandy winds swept across the Atlantic from the Saharan desert. Although sandstorms of this kind are a regular occurrence, Calima 2020 was the worst Saharan dust event in the past 20 to 30 years. Flights grounded, events cancelled, roads blocked. So here I was, feeling lost, party makeup gone. I found myself in these surreal surroundings. After another aimless walk through Puerto, I reluctantly agreed that it was safer to stay for the night. I cannot describe my disappointment. Having emigrated to Scotland 4 years ago, this was the first carnival for me in years, and I had a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that it was not happening. I was slowly coming to terms with the situation. There was nothing I could do to change it, but I could do the best with what we had. I realized that it didn't matter what happened, how far away I felt from where I wanted to be. Somehow, I had this unwavering feeling that things would work out, that this was not the end of the world, but only a diversion that had purpose. Little did I know that this hiccup that felt like a tragedy at the time was preparing me for what was soon to happen to the world. So much has changed, but we adjust, persevere, and persist. There will be ups and downs, and the downs can feel endless, but that is not true. Once it ends, we will come out stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Just remember, everything that happens for a reason.